What's going on, everyone? So, the Lakers have officially played 10 games, and before they get into their 11th, I wanted to kind of go over their first 10 games. Right? Obviously, early in the season, you don't want to overreact, you don't want to underreact, but there are some clear things that we had concerns with in the offseason that are still very apparent this season. Biggest one is still the lack of effort at times. This was a real issue for the Lakers last year, the lack of effort and consistency. And you saw game by game, it was just kind of like which Laker team is going to show up. I mean, even Anthony Davis this season talked about how it's two completely different Laker teams. Now, Lakers are undefeated at home. Clearly, when they're at home, the energy's there, the little better, which, you usually understand. Crowds in your favor, right? Guys are more confident. You're shooting and playing on a court that you're very, comfortable in. You've done this and repped this many of times. Where once you get on the road, crowd's no longer in your favor. You're dealing with just like rims you're not familiar with, court you're not familiar with. Team players kind of just shrink a little bit compared to when you're at home. But it's still not an excuse for effort. Right? Like, lack of consistency is never good, but consistency is one thing, right? Like, effort is something that is a choice, right? You either bring it or you don't. You either try out there or you don't. And we have seen several instances this season, not in as many games as last season, even through the first 10, right? Like, Lakers right from the gate were just like kind of game to game, right? Originally, it was the first halves, then it switched to the second halves, then it switched back to the first halves, where this season, outside of maybe 3 games, 3, maybe 4 games, or 3.5 games, the effort has been really questionable. Those first 4 games, right, before the Cavs game, right, it was this Lakers team is clearly different. Bringing it, energy, effort, just you can see the offense, the coaching is really instilled. Players are bought in, which I still believe all those things, right? This coaching staff is definitely better. JJ Redick is clearly better. Just his rotations, there's times where you can see he's trying to just throw guys and see if somebody sticks, but that's not his fault. That's the player's fault. That is, I even defended Darvin Ham last year for the same thing. Talked about it, as critical as I was of Darvin Ham, I did defend Darvin Ham a lot last year because, again, I don't care how good the coach is. You could have prime Phil Jackson. You could have Greg Popovich and Phil Jackson do the fusion dance into one coach. And guess what? It means nothing if the players don't do their job. If the players just decide to not show up, not rebound, JJ Redick isn't responsible for guys not hitting shots, not chasing down loose balls, not rebounding the basketball, not defending. And he's only so limited especially with this bench. This bench is worse than the league, right? So it's not like he has this treasure trove of options. And I said a lot of the same stuff about Darvin Ham last year. The players need to show up. The players need to deliver. So far through 10 games, you can argue, 40% of them, the Lakers just haven't shown up in. And we saw last year that never got fixed. It never got corrected. What happened? We ran into Denver. First halves, feeling good, baby. Denver, who? Kick your legs up. Put them on their desk. Hey, who was it? Chris Bouchard. It was hey, fix me a sandwich, right? His whole spiel every time, the Ravens win, right? Stuff like that, right? That's how we felt. And then the second half came, and it was what are we doing here? Why is this happening? And they just ran through us again, right? Because it never got addressed. It never got corrected. And I just think that either A, you start benching guys, or B, you trade them all off, right? Okay, if you don't want to bring the effort and don't bring the energy, there's somebody else that was willing to do it, right? It's just, there's still things that they clearly need to work out. Now, again, the Lakers overall are better. I've said I believe that they're going to be a top 5 offense in the league. They are there. I also believe that, this team is going to be more fluid. I still believe that they win 52 games. Right? You have to win on the road. My concern is this team has not been able to prove that they can win on the road. They beat Toronto, which is one of the worst teams in the league right now and are ravished with injuries. Right? I don't look at that as a quality road win. Yeah, you got it. Right? Suns game, that's a game that you felt we should have won. LeBron James played his worst game in like 20 seasons. So that's the game you can kind of chalk up. You just go, hey, you know what? We were right there. We were a possession away from winning that game. If LeBron just, not even like a good game, like if he plays like half decent, we win that game, right? Like you can kind of talk yourself into like, hey, that was a tough loss, right? That happens. But the Cavs, again, Cleveland, nobody can beat Cleveland. Right? So it's not just the Lakers. Like, no, literally, they're still undefeated at the time of recording this video. Right? Obviously, that could change, but at the time of recording this video, they're 12-0 right now. Right? So, but it wasn't that they lost. Again, obviously, no loss is a good loss, but there are better losses. Right? There are different ways to lose. Do you lose because of effort? Do you lose because the team just shot the lights out and it's just like you throw your hands up? It's like, what are you going to do? Right? They made 43s. Like, it doesn't matter. Right? They were just hot. And then there's just like, you just got dominated on every facet of the game. And you just didn't show up. You didn't play the effort. You had 21 assists to 20 turnovers. You're not winning very many games that way. Right? Like, it's just, you're not. And so then you see the Pistons game. And it's like, dude, like, again, I don't care that you lost the game, but that was a game that you absolutely should have won. You shouldn't have gotten blitzed start to finish by the Detroit Pistons, right? Like, that was just strictly effort. That wasn't Pistons were just, again, just shot the lights out, were just so incredibly good that you just throw your hands. No, it was you just failed to show up and play the game of basketball. That's where my problem lies. And the Lakers really need to correct that. I think overall, look, it's clear Lakers need a trade. They're not a true contender. Talked about it in the offseason, that I believe that they need at least 2 quality acquisitions. Again, don't underestimate the value. Like, I don't think one makes a contender, but don't underestimate the value of a key acquisition, right? Like, this is basketball. One guy can make a huge difference. Right? Like most sports, you get a guy outside of like, football with like a quarterback, like one guy usually, he'll make a difference, but it's very minimal. No, not in basketball. Basketball, one guy could be the difference between you winning an extra 20 games or not, right? Like Dallas, great example, right? Dallas last year was looking like a team like, are they going to miss the play-in again? Are they really this bad? Like, they had moments where they looked good, but they were not looking very good at all. And then they went and got Daniel Gafford. They went and got P.J. Washington. Jones Jr. ended up coming in. Derrick Jones Jr. ended up coming into his own a little bit. And then all of a sudden, they just kind of figured it out. And boom, just started blitzing everybody, and they're in the NBA Finals. Right? Like, don't underestimate the value of getting 1 to 2, really, in my opinion, 2, maybe even 3, like, maybe not high-end, but like mid-tier guys. And just because, again, Daniel Gafford and P.J. Washington aren't like high-end guys. Like, nobody was like, oh, man, those guys, those are the guys that every team needs to be. No, it was just like, man, those are solid pieces, right? Like, those are like, mid-end guys, right? Like, those are, starting caliber type guys. But nobody's like, oh, man, they're like they're your third best player. Like, no, it's just they were exactly what Dallas needed. If you find those right things for the Lakers, that can change a lot, right? But I still want the Lakers to remain patient. But you have to win games here, right? We're 6-4. I said I wanted to go 7-3. My prediction was 7-3. They're not that far off, right? If you win that Pistons game, you were 7-3, which that's the game that I feel like you can look back on. Hopefully this doesn't happen, but those are the kind of games you look back on and go, man, if we would have won the Pistons game. Right? Like that, like literally the West is so tight. Like those games that you should have won that you didn't are the difference between you now being in a 6th, 5th seed or 7th, 8th seed. So I hope that that's not something that comes back and bites the Lakers. I said I wanted them to be 7-3, that I thought that would be an A+, my book. So, I think overall, I think it's been, I would say a B. I think a solid B, right? Because they were very impressive to start the season. There's a lot of good with this team. A lot of changes. D'Angelo Russell's buying in. J.J. Redick's got him buying in off the bench, right? I see all kinds of different justifications as to why, he's out of contract or whatever. Doesn't matter. Fact is, he's bought in. And he wasn't willing to do that with Darvin Ham. So you tip your hat to the coaching staff, tip your hat to D'Angelo Russell. Thanks for buying in. That's huge, right? You're seeing the little adjustments. We're 2-0 since those adjustments. Hopefully that keeps ramping up. You have a real opportunity here, right? Through your first 10 games, there were incredible highs, incredible lows, right? And then there were the in-betweens, which is what you expect, especially early on. But I do think, considering the circumstance, I do think a B is fair, right? This is a team that you can see being very competitive. This team does look, in my opinion, like a playoff team when they play. I don't think that they are a top 5 team in the NBA. I don't think that they are a bona fide contender, but I do think they are in that next tier. I do think that they are, top 7 to 8 maybe in the NBA, and a team that could easily come out the Western Conference. You get the right matchups. JJ Redick, I trust his scheming. I trust his preparation. I trust his, adjustments in game. I don't think anyone would be shocked if the Lakers were in the finals or won the NBA championship. They have LeBron James and Anthony Davis is having an MVP level season thus far, right? So the players are showing up, everything is starting to come together. It's early in the process, right? We talked about this in the beginning. It's going to be a process. Things aren't going to be perfect right out the gate, and we've seen that. We've seen what it looks like when they're at their best. You're not beating them, right? We've seen what they look like when they're at their worst. They're very easy to beat. We've seen them in those in-between games, and we've seen that, the Minnesota game. Poor shooting, but proper style of play, and we won. All right? Phoenix, up until recently, we were the only team to beat them. They were 8-1? We were the only team to beat them. Why? Because we played the right way and we got it done. And we should have beaten them the second time. Right? So, I like where we're at. I'm comfortable where we're at. I feel good about the situation we're at. That doesn't mean that I don't want to trade. That doesn't mean that any of that. I feel comfortable being patient and allowing things to develop so we can get into the season or get through this season until, trade deadline or mid-December or whatever, or January, when guys start becoming available, like Valanciunas, stuff like that. Lakers now have some more options. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, and I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? And Phil, what are your thoughts? Do you have any concerns? Do you think that, no, they're fine, they're good? What would you kind of rate the Lakers? A, B, C, D, F scale. Let's keep it simple. Like I said, I think a B, not a B plus. I think a solid B thus far. Again, they're 6-4 on the season. I wanted them to go 7-3. I think that's fine. Again, if they were 7-3 and look good, no, there hasn't been a team outside of the Cavs that have been perfect, right? So again, I think a B is a fair assessment. But what do you feel? Let me know down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. It's me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.